The Case of Christine Armande. Ghoul. The following case was reported by the famous Anglo-Irish ghost hunter Elliott O'Donnell in his 1912 book Werewolves. I have edited O'Donnell's original text and tried to put things in my own words as much as possible. But sometimes you just have to go with the master's own purple prose. Back in 1910, there lived, in France, a lovely, rich, and very spoiled young woman named Christine Armande. Christine became interested in spiritualism, taking part in seances where she experienced strange phenomena, strange paranormal phenomena, some of it faked. But she also came into contact, to use O'Donnell's words, with earthbound spirits of the lowest and most undesirable order. Murderers, lunatics, vice elementals, and ghouls. Unfortunately, given a chance, such earthbound spirits attach themselves to unfortunate victims and follow them home. They followed Christine home, rapping on the walls of her bedroom like poltergeists and haunting the watches of the night. In the wee hours, she would often wake up screaming, having dreamt of scary monsters trying to steal her beautiful body and her soul. A spiritualist she consulted told Christine that her dreams were really projections, that she had acquired the power of astral projection through attending seances and now projected herself unconsciously while asleep. A doctor she consulted advised Christine to go to the seaside and lose herself in pleasure, balls, concerts, and theaters, and the whirl of social activity, and of course the company of young men. But the spirits followed her to the seaside and bided their time. As Christine was beautiful and rich, she had many suitors. The one she chose was André Leclerc, the only son of a very wealthy widow. Sadly, before they could be married, Madame Leclerc, who suffered from obesity, had a massive heart attack and died. Everyone, especially Christine, was overwhelmed by grief, for she had grown very fond of her prospective mother-in-law, whom she felt was a paragon of good taste. The afternoon before the funeral, Christine complained of a bad headache and went to lie down. But 2 hours later, strange footsteps were heard coming down the stairs. Wondering who it could be, Madame Armande went to look, and was astonished to see Christine, who stared at her with blazing red eyes, her feral mouth twisted in anger and hunger. Ignoring her mother, she pushed past her and leapt out the front door, which she slammed behind her. Madame Armande told her husband, who immediately went looking for the missing girl, but Christine was nowhere to be found. Late that night, as midnight rapidly approached, the Armandes heard someone pounding on their front door. It was André Leclerc, who looked like he was about to throw up. In fact, there were splatters of vomit on his shoes. "Where is she?" the parents cried. André only nodded. "Please, I must sit down," he gasped. "I don't know how I can tell you." André collapsed into a chair and hid his face in his hands. He was shaking convulsively, like a man in a fit, or a man in mortal terror. Eventually he raised his head and asked for a stiff brandy. After draining it in a single gulp, he was finally able to talk. "When your servant came to my house at 9 o'clock and told me Mademoiselle Christine was missing, I immediately said I would help him search for her. But just then, Jacques, my valet, shaking in fear, came to me and asked me to come upstairs. Immediately. We stood outside the door where my mother's body lay in her coffin, and from inside we could hear the sound of chewing, of smacking lips, of grinding like an animal gnawing on some bones. But that wasn't all we heard. We also heard the sound of heels and the crinkling of a dress. I went downstairs and gathered the other servants, arming them with heavy sticks. We then went back upstairs and threw open the door. We found Christine there, crouching over my mother's corpse and eating one of her stout legs. She had been dining for a while, as the carpet was covered with bones and body parts which looked like chunks of raw meat which had been chewed and spit out. Her face was stained with red gore. Christine sprang from the floor, slashing one of the maids across the face with a hand that had turned into a bloody claw. And then she ran out the door and disappeared into the night, and we don't know where she is gone. Andre was too embarrassed to add, but the main reason they didn't pursue Christine was projectile vomiting, as the ghastly scene before them had made them all sick to their stomachs. Ah, those rich French diets. But I digress. In the middle of the night, the local gendarmerie finally located Christine in an isolated graveyard, attacking a freshly made grave with hands which had morphed into huge murderous claws. Elliott O'Donnell concludes, in the chase that ensued, fortunately for her and for all concerned, she plunged into a river, was swept away by the current, and drowned. O'Donnell concluded, this case of Christine Armande seems to me to be clearly a case of ghoulism. What the spiritualist had told her was correct. She had projected herself unconsciously, and the hideous things she imagined were phantoms in a dream, were elementals, ghouls, her projected spirit encountered on the superphysical plane. After sundry efforts to steal her body, when she was thus separated from it, one of them had at length succeeded, and incarcerated in her beautiful frame had hastened to satisfy its craving for human carrion. Yuck. I don't know what human flesh tastes like, but this whole story is in bad taste. Or is that tongue-in-cheek? And who knew taking a nap could be so dangerous? Thank you so much for listening. If this is your first visit to my channel, my name is Warren, and I write and tell original ghost stories and original horror stories about the night floaters, werewolves, and black-eyed children. So please consider subscribing, and be sure to drop a like, share, and ring the bell so you won't miss any upcoming videos. I have to apologize for my voice. It's a little on the rough side today. Must be all that raw meat I've been eating recently. Till midnight. Cheers.